Hello there, boys and ghouls. You're watching Hell Week? 5 days worth of pumpkin-shaped shenanigans, all brought to you by horror author and illustrator Michael J. Elliott here. So, let's get to it, shall we? Yeah. Yeah.
G'day Darkrealmers, and welcome to Halloween Hell Week. My name is Christie Stratos, and I am the author of Anatomy of a Darkened Heart and Lock and Key, both part of the Dark Victoriana collection. Thank you so much for joining us today. I love Halloween. I don't know if you can tell at all, probably not, but I do love Halloween and I look forward to it every single year. And one of the things that sometimes we overlook because we don't really hear too much about fairy tales anymore is, what are some of the most violent ones? Well, I'm going to tell you about a few of them, and there are some lessons to be learned, and I'm going to share my knowledge with you. But first, let me just tell you that if you look down below in the description, you will see a link to Wattpad where I came up with my own alternate ending to Cinderella, and I think that you will enjoy it, so definitely check that out. So, let's get started with these very important lessons. First of all, if you're ever thinking of wearing red shoes to church or whatever kind of religious place you attend, you should probably think twice, because little did you know, they could actually grow to your foot, force you to dance forever, and then the only way that you can get rid of them is to actually have someone chop off your feet. I mean, you know, it's just what happens when you wear red shoes in a religious place, and then you just can't have feet. This is actually from The Red Shoes, which is a tale from Hans Christian Andersen. I have a big thing of all of his fairy tales. Some of them are specifically just fairy tales, some of them are original, some of them are legends, all kinds of stuff, but I really enjoy this book a lot. And The Red Shoes was a shocker for me. I was surprised that you could end up losing your feet just by buying red shoes, but actually what happens is the little girl who likes these red patent leather shoes wants to wear them to church, and apparently red is just not something you can do that with. For some reason, red is just no good to wear to church, and she becomes very obsessed with them, and that's all she pays attention to the degree that they start to like take over her life literally, and they start dancing on their own, and she can't stop them. And like I said, what's the only way to get off shoes that won't come off? It's definitely to have someone cut off your feet. So be careful in the future. That's a good one. It's a really interesting one. I definitely recommend that you read it. Apparently, shoes are a really, really iffy thing that cause a lot of violence, whether it's self-violence or whatever. And so the next time you are asked by a prince to try on a shoe, because if you try on that shoe, it turns out that you're definitely going to be his princess, obviously, then you should probably think twice, because if your foot doesn't fit, you may not want to go cutting off bits of your feet. I know that's what you were going to do, and so I just wanted to warn you well in advance. In the original Cinderella, which is a Brothers Grimm tale, believe it or not, if you did or did not know that, here it is. This is a gorgeous book. It's gilt and everything. It has some great illustrations. Here's the end papers. I think you guys will appreciate how lovely that is. But besides that, Cinderella, when she leaves her glass slipper behind, of course, her stepsisters want to try on that shoe, and they just want to trick that prince into thinking that they are the princesses that he is looking for. So, of course, I mean, it's a glass shoe, but you know the stereotype about men. They don't necessarily pay attention to that much, especially when it has to do with looks. You get your hair cut, and the stereotype is that your boyfriend might not notice, right? So, in this case, you know, the stepsister cuts off a toe, like a whole one, puts it in a glass shoe, so obviously there's a lot of blood, the shoe is turning red, but he doesn't notice that. He just notices that this shoe seems to fit. So, you know, guys, pay attention to girls' shoes. There may be a warning sign sitting there for you. One stepsister cuts off a toe, one stepsister actually cuts off part of her heel to fit in it. Either way, it's birds that have to tell the prince, hey, there's some blood on that shoe over there. I don't think she's the one for you. In the end, it actually gets worse than that, believe it or not, as the stepsisters are obviously not going to marry the prince. They each have an eye plucked out, which is fun. And then, and this is a fairy tale, mind you, and then they each have another eye plucked out, so they're blind for life. So that's the true story of Cinderella. That is the sordid tale that Disney just did not want to tell you. Aren't you glad you know that now? If your father accidentally promises you to a wizard or a devil, not knowing that he did it, but just by accident, this wizard walks up to him and says, you know, I'll give you lots of riches if you'll give me what is behind your mill or house or whatever it may be. And he just says, sure. Actually, you're the one standing there, so you're the one who's promised to the wizard or the demon or whatever it is. You may just want to make sure that you're ready to be super obedient, because what's going to happen, I'm going to tell you, this is a secret. This is a secret that not everyone knows. At some point, your father may be given a choice. Either he can go and be with that wizard or demon or whatever, or he can chop off your hands. I mean, it's not a difficult decision. Obviously, the father wants to chop off your hands. So I know that doesn't surprise any of us. What may surprise some of us is that you are expected to just go, okay, go for it, Dad. This is what happens in it. This is actually called a number of things. I've seen it referred to as the maiden without hands. That's the one that I actually have in the Brothers Grimm book, but I have also seen it referred to as the girl without hands and the handless maiden. So that's an interesting one to check out, and the rest of it is unlike any fairy tale you have ever read. So, but it definitely starts out with a father just like chopping off his daughter's hands because he doesn't really want to go with that wizard or demon. And who can blame him? Wouldn't you rather cut off a piece of your loved one than go and hang out with a wizard or a demon? Rapunzel we can practically skip over because the only violent thing that happens there is that when the prince climbs up Rapunzel's hair and he's discovered by the woman who's keeping her there, he tries to escape by jumping out of the tower and, you know, goes blind. But, you know, don't worry about that one. It's not as violent as the other ones. My favorite violent fairy tale by far is The Little Mermaid, and that's another one by Hans Christian Andersen. Now, some of you may be familiar with it. I just want to tell you that the Disney version is just slightly subdued, just a little bit different from what the actual fairy tale is. And by the way, earlier this year, I did have Ursula absolutely ruined for me. I had one childhood dream destroyed, unfortunately, when I thought that that happens in The Little Mermaid that you will see on screen, I thought that this was Ursula squeezing a little flower and getting lipstick out of it. But as it turns out, it's actually a shellfish. It's like a mussel or something, and she's squeezing its guts all over her lips. So that ruined my entire childhood. All of my dreams are dead. First Disney difference that you need to know is that Ariel doesn't just have her voice taken away from her in a beautiful glowing orb, but actually what happens is this sea witch, who is not named Ursula, and actually the Little Mermaid doesn't have a name either. She's not named Ariel, she's just nameless. The sea witch actually cuts out her tongue, so it's not quite as romantic or lovely as Disney makes it seem. Yeah, she has her tongue cut out, and you may be surprised to find out that it's not just that Ariel gets to walk on legs that she's not used to yet, but the deal is she can walk on those two legs, and it will be extremely painful. The whole point is that every time she takes a step, it feels like daggers in her feet. So there's a little bit more sacrifice there for the prince than Disney would have you believe, but now you know the truth of sacrifice for love. Another difference that I find really interesting is actually that the Little Mermaid can spend as much time as she wants with the prince, married or unmarried. It does not actually matter. There is no time limit. It's really just a matter of if he marries someone else. And so when he does actually go to marry someone else, she is supposed to, by the next morning after he has been married to this other person, she's supposed to turn into sea foam for eternity and have no soul. Because mermaids don't. Apparently the only way as a mermaid that you can have a soul is by marrying a human. So she doesn't have a soul. It's cool, don't worry about it. But when he marries someone else, her sisters show up, because she has a bunch of sisters. They show up in the sea with their hair cut short, and she says, why did you cut your hair short? And they say that they had to cut it short and give it to the sea witch so that the sea witch would do her the favor of making it so that if she kills the prince by stabbing him in the heart and then drips his blood on her feet. Only then can she turn back into a mermaid and live her regular 300 years. I mean, is that a deal or is that a deal? Luckily, the Little Mermaid has scruples and she decides that she's not going to kill him. And I'll leave the end to you because it's an interesting ending. So I would definitely recommend checking that out. That is another Hans Christian Andersen tale. If you'd like a bonus story, I'm not going to tell you much about this one, except that if you want to read The Little Thumb, which is a Perrault story, that's a fun one that involves some throat slitting. So I'll leave you to enjoy that on your own. You can find that for free online. But really, check out these fairy tales. They are pretty horrific, and they're really good to read more around Halloween as a scary type of thing than to rock your child to sleep by. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for spending time with me, and I hope you're enjoying Halloween Hell Week. I hope you will also pick up a copy of Michael J. Elliott's works. He has 2 anthologies out and a number of short stories that are really perfect for Halloween. So thank you so much to the Dark Realm Diaries for having me, and I will see you on my own channel. Be sure to check that out. I am on YouTube, Pinterest, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Anywhere you can think of, I most likely am. So I will see you over there.